the most magnetically attractive people aren't using charm or good looks as their secret weapon, but something far more powerful that most people completely overlook. In 2025, Stanford researchers, using fMRI brain imaging, identified 7 psychological patterns that create an almost irresistible pull in human interactions. These tactics work because they align with how our brains are naturally wired to respond to certain stimuli. The most surprising discovery from this research involves how our brains now react differently to scarcity than they did just 5 years ago. What once worked to create attraction now often backfires completely, forcing us to rethink everything we thought we knew about human psychology. The scarcity principle reimagined. The first psychological principle that creates magnetic attraction operates differently in 2025 than it did just 5 years ago. Stanford neuroscientists discovered that our brains now respond to scarcity in completely unexpected ways due to constant digital stimulation. When researchers used fMRI scanners to monitor brain activity in participants exposed to limited versus abundant options, they found something remarkable. The traditional scarcity response that once triggered immediate desire now creates skepticism instead. People have become so accustomed to manufactured urgency through social media ads and dating app notifications that their brains automatically filter out artificial scarcity signals. This creates a massive problem for anyone trying to increase their attractiveness through traditional unavailability tactics. The old approach of not responding to messages quickly or canceling plans to appear busy now backfires spectacularly. The fMRI data reveals that when people detect artificial urgency, their anterior cingulate cortex lights up with the same pattern associated with detecting deception. Your brain literally categorizes fake unavailability as a lie, which destroys trust rather than building attraction. The solution lies in understanding authentic scarcity versus manufactured unavailability. Authentic scarcity occurs when someone genuinely has limited time or attention due to meaningful pursuits, while manufactured unavailability involves artificially creating the appearance of being busy or in demand. Neurological studies reveal genuine scarcity triggers reward signals, while manufactured tactics trigger stress responses in the brain. Consider how naturally attractive people operate in 2025. They don't need to pretend they're busy because they actually are engaged in pursuits that matter to them. Take a musician preparing for an upcoming performance. Their evening rehearsals, weekend studio sessions, and focused practice time create genuine limitations on their availability. When they do make time for someone, that person knows they're competing with something the musician genuinely cares about, making the attention feel more valuable and intentional. The brain chemistry behind why people value limited availability involves multiple neurotransmitter systems working together. When something appears genuinely scarce, your brain releases dopamine in anticipation of potentially missing out on something valuable. Simultaneously, norepinephrine increases focus and attention toward that scarce resource. This combination creates what psychologists call the scarcity arousal response, where people become more mentally and emotionally invested in obtaining what seems limited. The balance between being available and maintaining individual identity requires careful navigation in 2025's relationship landscape. You want to show interest and reciprocate attention while simultaneously demonstrating that you have a rich, fulfilling life independent of any single relationship. This means responding to messages in a timely manner when you're genuinely free, but not feeling obligated to be constantly available when you're engaged in meaningful activities. Practical implementation of authentic scarcity starts with genuinely developing interests and pursuits that require your time and energy. If you're passionate about learning a new language, your evening language classes naturally limit your availability on certain nights. If you're committed to a fitness routine, your morning workouts create legitimate windows when you're not available for casual conversation. If you're building a side business, your weekend work sessions represent real-time commitments that others must respect. The key difference is that these activities genuinely enrich your life rather than serving as props to appear busy. When someone asks about your limited availability, you can speak authentically about what you're pursuing and why it matters to you. This authenticity registers in your voice tone, body language, and the specific details you share, all of which help others recognize that your scarcity is real rather than manufactured. Common mistakes people make include taking hours to respond to messages for no reason other than to appear busy, making up fake plans or commitments, canceling confirmed plans to create the impression of having better options, or name-dropping other people they're supposedly seeing to manufacture jealousy. These tactics backfire because they create inconsistencies that others notice subconsciously. Another frequent error involves confusing scarcity with being difficult or high maintenance. Authentic scarcity makes you more valuable when you are available, not more challenging to interact with. When someone with genuine scarcity spends time with you, they're fully present and engaged because they've chosen to prioritize that interaction over their other meaningful pursuits. The neurological impact of authentic scarcity extends beyond initial attraction into long-term relationship dynamics. When people know your time is genuinely limited due to meaningful pursuits, they tend to bring more energy and intentionality to the time you do spend together. This creates higher quality interactions that strengthen emotional bonds rather than the resentment that often builds from artificial tactics. Social media has actually amplified the power of authentic scarcity by making it easier to verify whether someone's claimed pursuits are real. People can see evidence of your genuine interests through your posts, stories, and the content you engage with. This transparency means that authentic scarcity becomes more believable and attractive, while manufactured scarcity becomes easier to detect and dismiss. Understanding authentic scarcity also means recognizing when others are genuinely busy versus when they're playing games with you. This awareness prevents you from wasting emotional energy on people who are artificially creating distance, while helping you appreciate and respect those who have legitimate time constraints due to meaningful pursuits. The transformation that occurs when you master authentic scarcity goes beyond just becoming more attractive to others. You actually become more attractive to yourself as you develop genuine interests and pursue meaningful goals. This internal shift in how you view yourself radiates outward and affects how others perceive you. Your confidence becomes grounded in real accomplishments and growth rather than manipulation tactics. When you implement authentic scarcity correctly, your presence becomes something others naturally gravitate toward because the time spent with you feels valuable and intentional. People begin to associate you with meaningful experiences rather than casual time filling, which creates a psychological preference for your company. But creating this magnetic pull through scarcity is just the beginning. There's another psychological principle that works even more powerfully when you understand how to make people naturally want to say yes to your requests. Progressive commitment strategy. This psychological principle operates through what researchers call progressive commitment strategy. Have you ever noticed how some people can get others to agree to almost anything while you struggle to get simple requests accepted? The difference lies in understanding how human psychology responds to sequential decision-making. Recent cognitive research from 2025 reveals that our brains create specific neural pathways when we make small commitments, and these pathways influence every subsequent decision we make. This discovery has completely changed how we understand influence and agreement in human interactions. The updated research on cognitive consistency shows that micro-commitments literally reshape brain structure in measurable ways. When someone agrees to a small request, their anterior cingulate cortex creates new neural connections that favor consistency with that initial decision. Neuroscientists using advanced brain imaging technology discovered that these neural pathways remain active for up to 72 hours after the initial commitment, making people significantly more likely to agree to related requests during this window. What makes certain people naturally effective at gaining agreement is their unconscious use of a specific sequence that bypasses mental resistance. They start with requests so small that saying no would seem unreasonable, then gradually increase the size of subsequent requests while maintaining logical connections between each step. This sequence works because each yes creates psychological momentum that makes the next yes feel natural and consistent. The brain creates these neural pathways through a process called synaptic strengthening, where repeated patterns of thought and decision-making become automatic responses. When someone agrees to help you with something small, their brain begins categorizing them as someone who helps you. This self-categorization becomes stronger with each positive interaction, creating an internal identity that influences future decisions. The person begins to see themselves as your supporter, which makes larger requests feel consistent with their established self-image. Recent 2025 data on decision fatigue reveals why starting small bypasses mental resistance so effectively. The average person makes over 35,000 decisions per day, leading to what researchers call cognitive depletion by mid-afternoon. Small requests require minimal cognitive processing, so people can agree without triggering their mental resistance mechanisms. By the time you present larger requests, you've already established a pattern of agreement that feels effortless to continue. Consider how this works in modern social interactions and relationship building. If you want someone to spend their weekend helping you move, asking directly often triggers immediate resistance because they mentally calculate the time, energy, and inconvenience involved. However, if you first ask them to recommend a good moving company, they easily agree because it requires only a few seconds of thought. A few days later, you might ask if they know anyone with a truck you could borrow. Again, this feels like a simple information request. By the time you ask for their personal help, they've already invested mental energy in your moving situation and feel psychologically committed to your success. The difference between manipulation and natural influence through progressive engagement lies in genuine mutual benefit and respect for the other person's autonomy. Manipulation involves deceiving people about your true intentions or ignoring their best interests. Natural influence respects the other person's right to say no, while creating opportunities for them to say yes to things that benefit both of you. When you use progressive commitment ethically, each small agreement should provide some value or satisfaction to the other person. Social media has fundamentally changed how people make commitments and follow through in 2025. Digital interactions create what psychologists call micro-commitment fatigue, where people become overwhelmed by constant small requests for likes, shares, comments, and engagement. This has made people more resistant to online requests, while simultaneously making in-person progressive commitment more powerful by comparison. Face-to-face interactions now carry extra weight because they feel more genuine and personal than digital requests. Timing elements play a crucial role in making this technique effective in 2025's fast-paced environment. The optimal window between initial small requests and larger requests has shortened from the traditional 1 week to just 48 to 72 hours. This compression occurs because people's attention spans have decreased, and they forget their previous commitments more quickly. However, requests made too quickly feel pushy and trigger resistance, so the timing must balance momentum with natural progression. The most effective timing follows the rhythm of modern communication patterns. Initial small requests work best during low-stress times like mid-morning or early evening, when people have mental bandwidth available. Follow-up requests should come during the same time periods when the person previously responded positively, because they associate those times with agreeable interactions with you. The sequence becomes more powerful when each step provides the other person with small wins or positive feelings. If your first request allows them to demonstrate their expertise or helpfulness, they experience satisfaction that makes them more receptive to future requests. This positive reinforcement strengthens the neural pathways associated with helping you and creates genuine goodwill rather than mere compliance. Progressive commitment also works in reverse for building boundaries and reducing unwanted requests from others. When someone asks you for something significant, you can counter with a much smaller version of their request. If they accept the smaller version, you've maintained the relationship while protecting your time and energy. If they reject the smaller version, you've revealed that they weren't genuinely interested in mutual benefit. The psychological foundation created by small initial agreements extends far beyond simple compliance into deeper emotional connection. When someone has a history of saying yes to your requests, they begin to feel psychologically invested in your success and well-being. This investment creates what researchers call commitment escalation, where people naturally want to increase their involvement with someone they've already helped. This emotional investment explains why progressive commitment builds stronger relationships than direct large requests. People value relationships more highly when they've contributed to them through their own choices and actions. The small agreements create shared history and mutual investment that strengthens the bond between you and the other person. The technique becomes most powerful when you genuinely care about the other person's experience and make each request something they can feel good about completing. This authentic consideration for their well-being transforms simple compliance into willing partnership, creating the foundation for deeper connection and mutual support.